The information provided in this podcast is prepared by Ocean Estate Law PC for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. The information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship. It is not legal advice or a substitute for obtaining legal advice from an attorney. A person listening or watching should not rely upon it in any manner without engaging professional counsel. The information is intended to communicate general information and, because recorded, may not be current.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Ocean Estate Law's podcast. My name is Jennifer Elliott. I'm an attorney with Ocean Estate Law with offices in San Clemente and Laguna Hills. I'm a certified specialist in trust, estate, and probate law. This podcast is to teach you about estate law and keep your family out of court. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing legacy letters to you. Now, your legacy is so important for your family. What can you do to protect your legacy? You would first make sure you have an estate plan. Second, make sure that estate plan is updated. Is it current? Third, make sure you name all the proper people in your estate plan. Is a trustee still the person that you want to handle things for you? Do you have beneficiaries named on all of your bank accounts so you can avoid probate court? And then finally, introduce your estate plan to your family and introduce your attorney to your family so they know who to call. And obviously, I'm honored to be that attorney for you and your family. Today, I have a special guest, Father Patrick Crerar. He was ordained an Episcopal priest 15 years ago, and for the last 11 years, he has been the rector of St. Clements by the Sea Episcopal Church in San Clemente. Welcome, Father Patrick.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, to come and speak on this important topic of legacy letters.
So let's talk about legacy letters, and first you want to talk about legacy in general.
I do. The reason is that legacy is very big with the church, as you might imagine. Everything we do because those before us have done something to help enable that ministry. We stand on the shoulders of those who have come before us, and we're very aware of that as we live out our ministry in the world today. Also, the very faith that we proclaim, we can only proclaim that faith because people before us handed it down. That is what we say in Christianity, is that we practice the faith that has been passed down through the saints. And so the saints passed that faith on to us. That was their legacy to us. And if they hadn't written it down, if they hadn't passed it along, what would we be believing today? And so we have that great gift that we give such great thanks for. And it's something that people can do in their own families as they pass down their legacies from one generation to another.
Sure. Now, that is the reason why I wanted to have you be the guest for this topic today. As many people say, it's really great that my parent left me all this cash, and how nice that I inherited their home. But the thing that I really, really appreciate receiving from my parent is a legacy letter.
Yes. I've seen that and know it to be true. I can remember early in my ministry being with a family at the time of their mother's passing. And the most cherished gift that the daughter received was her mother's Bible. I still remember that Bible. It had a white cover, and it was one that her mother used every day. And even though the daughter was grown and had her own beliefs, that gift from her mother of passing on what she believed, and in some ways why she believed those things, was incredibly powerful. You know, in some ways, this is an American tradition, too. You think about the Declaration of Independence. You know, it starts with these things we believe, written by people who were in a critical moment in history, who were, if they didn't succeed, going to be facing their own demise, you know? Sure. And how do they start that? By saying, we believe these things. We believe that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, excuse me. How powerful is that? They didn't just hand on a bunch of rules or say how these things were going to all work out. They told us what they believed. What were their motivations? And I think that still inspires us to this day.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we talk about in legacy letters. The other word for legacy letters is an ethical will. And so, of course, our wills, when we're talking about these in traditional times, your will is a list of things that you leave to people. And an ethical will or legacy letter is a list of stories and things that you want to share with your family, about yourself, and other important things that we're going to talk about later in this podcast.
Well, good. I also want to point out that legacy letters have some basis in Scripture. We find that in Genesis 49, for example, when while it's not that he wrote it down, he gathered all of his sons together, that is Israel, formerly known as Jacob. Before he passes on, he gathers his 12 sons together and tells them each something about them that was important. I don't necessarily recommend some of the things that Jacob said. He had some issues with some of his sons, but most of them were quite inspiring. For example, he says to Judah, "You are a lion." And imagine when Judah, thinks about that later. My dad thought I was a lion. What courage that probably gave him in challenging times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm going to have to go and read that part of the Scripture. Thank you.
Sure.
So let's talk about, of course, this is a thing that you can create for a loved one that costs you nothing. In fact, you can do this in less than an hour, and it is priceless. So I love that. That's why this is my favorite topic to share with clients.
Yes.
So let's talk about who you should write a legacy letter for.
Right. Well, certainly, if you're married, you'd probably want to leave a legacy letter for your spouse. As I speak about my own generation, I would have. My father did leave a legacy letter for his 7 children, and there are still things that I recall from that inspire. So certainly your spouse and your children would be important, but also some people that you might not think about immediately. Perhaps if you have a sibling with whom you've had some falling out, and it's been some time since that's happened, maybe some words of reconciliation would be helpful. The position of the church is always to reconcile broken relationships, to bring people back together, both God and God's people, but also people with those whom they love, with whom they've become estranged. And so those letters can be very, very powerful. Sometimes talking about it directly with that person isn't possible, but leaving a letter is, and saying, I still love you, and I miss the time that we could have had together. And you might even say, maybe I was wrong. So that's something to keep in mind, a possibility that letter can actually do some real healing, even after you've gone on to a better place.
Sure. And not only can it be healing for the recipient of the letter, but how healing can that be for you to write that?
Absolutely. To put those things, to commit them to words. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And truly forgive and feel that peace.
That's right. Right.
So legacy letters will be for your spouse, for your children, grandchildren, friends.
Sure.
And even people that you would least think of wanting to write some loving things.
Right.
Because these are things you truly should be forgiving them for.
That's right. And we might talk about the aspect of time. I'm with families often in the end of their lives. And a very common practice is for family members to rush as fast as they can to get home in time to be with those they love. And that is very, very good. The sad aspect of that sometimes is that communication isn't always easy in those moments. If it's not just the distraction of having a whole lot of people there where somebody may not feel as comfortable saying all the things they want to say, sometimes it is that their beloved is not at a place where they can communicate, respond to their communication.
Memory loss, illness, medication, all those impact this.
Exactly right. And so doing this earlier, when one is clear-minded and there aren't all these distractions, can be very, very helpful as well.
Agreed. Doing it today while you're healthy and well.
Yes.
Take an hour and a notepad and pen and take some time to write down these things. I find that sometimes clients will say, I'm not ready to go. I'm not ready to tell my life story or to think this deep about what I need to say to my loved ones. I've got plenty of time. Mm-hmm. But as you mentioned, you never know when illness is going to strike. That's and right. we don't have the time that we think we have.
None of us know the hour of the day, to put it in scriptural terms. And then we might be able to be more focused about why we're writing the things that we're writing. Passing on to that next generation our motivations and the things that we believed. I think about some of the best obituaries I've read, and the ones that are not as perfect, right? There's those ones that really just list the facts. And sometimes you read all those facts and you go, my goodness.
What a life.
That person sure did a lot of stuff. But the ones that touch me are the ones that say, she did this because. She did this because she loved everybody and she wanted to make sure that they were healthy. So she went into nursing and it made all the difference. And she so lovingly cared for every single one of her patients, you know, that shed some light on what were the things they held most dear.
Yes.
And why. Maybe it was because they had faced a very serious illness as a young person, and they had been just loved on and cared for, and they said, I want to make sure everyone in this world is so loved on and cared for as I received.
And wouldn't that be beautiful to share with your loved ones so we know why?
Exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the things that our viewers should consider putting in their legacy letter.
Great. What
ideas would you have?
Well, as I've been alluding to, I think motivations and deep beliefs are really, really important. There are other things that one might want to include, as we've touched on the idea of apologies or regrets. Those are possibilities. If you're going to be passing on a particular item, say why that item for that person. What do you think about that?
That is so personal to me.
Okay.
I have a fork in my silverware drawer, and this fork doesn't match anything else in the silverware drawer. And if my daughters find that fork, they would look at it and toss it because it doesn't match the set. Why do we need this silly fork?
But it's precious to you.
It is so precious to me because this fork was my grandmother's fork, and it's the only one in her set that I got. We kind of divvied up the fork, so I got one, and I love this fork, and I bring it out for every holiday.
It's great.
I'm going to try to not cry. But they may not realize, but my grandmother is there every Thanksgiving, every Christmas.
And that's going to be in your letter.
It's going to be in my letter.
This is why I'm leaving you this fork.
So they keep that fork.
This was your great-grandmother's fork.
That's right.
Yeah, she held this, and that's why it's precious.
And I want this fork to continue in your holidays.
Yeah, beautiful, beautifully said. There are other things that one might want to include. Of course, if there is, one of the things we do in the church is we make sure that we are telling the future generations what the past generations did and have achieved, and what were their challenges, you know. The word for that is myth, right? Preserving the myth. We don't mean myth in a detrimental way. It is true, but it's also, we're kind of maybe looking back with some rosy glasses a little bit and saying, this is what has been done in the past. Everything we're doing is to enable the future, hang on to some of that because it's good, right? There was good things of our past that we need to preserve moving forward into the future. If one views their past as enabling the future, I think that is a very healthful way of looking at it.
Sure.
Not that it constrains. We don't have to do everything the same way as we always have. You don't have to do the things exactly the same way your parents did or your grandparents. But it's important to know what they did and why they did it, because there is probably some wisdom there that can be helpful.
Sure. I've seen some clients share things like, this is an organization or a charity that is important to me, and this is why. And I hope that you'll consider carrying on your support for this charity or church or organization.
Yes, exactly. So if you're saying that one is explaining to their children in this letter why they supported these organizations, I think that is really important. We supported this church because they were there for us when we needed them, and my goodness, they have really become like family to us.
Yes.
That might be something to include. If it is, we are supporting the American Cancer Society, why?
Right.
Say those things. Obviously a very worthy cause.
Sure.
So I think that you've touched on a great insight there, that our heirs understanding why we supported the things we supported also helps them to know, again, those things that we hold most dear.
Right.
When I prepare couples for holy matrimony, one of the questions I ask them is, what are 3 things that if you had all the money in the world, you would change about the world to make it a better place? And their answers range, and often they look at each other like, I never knew that about you. I never knew that you cared about that thing. And I think it's really important for couples who are going to enter lifelong union to know what things they hold most dear.
Right. And I think that's what this Legacy Letter Project helps people to do, is go deep into their thoughts and put this down on paper.
Yeah.
You can include basic things like, I love you because I want to share this family recipe with you. I want to share this family story about your grandparent or someone else in the family. All of those things are so precious to those that are reading the letter, and it's such a gift.
Yes. Yes. Good.
So let's talk about where you should keep this letter. I suggest to my clients that they keep it in their estate planning binder.
Okay.
The binder is a document that has their will, their trust, all of their important records that the trustee needs to access everything, all the tools that we give the trustee. And right in that binder, there's a place for legacy letters, and the trustee would be the ideal person to distribute those letters once we're gone.
That sounds like a terrific plan. I've noticed, and this is an aside, but keeping those things safe, I've noticed that more and more places you can't get a safe deposit box, for example. So
Right.
do you think just keeping those at home then is
I like to recommend that
secure
clients
enough?
keep them in a safe in their home.
In
So
a
a safety
safe in
deposit
their
box is narrow,
Right.
and and unless you're going to roll it up like newsprint, it's not going to fit.
Right.
But a safe in your home is the ideal place to store your estate planning binder with your legacy letters in it. And then, of course, for security, you want to keep that bolted to the slab of your house.
Yeah.
And that way, a bad guy comes in and tries to cart off the safe, and he's stop cold. So that's how I like to secure
I
estate
just learned
plans.
something there. See.
Yes.
Correct.
Now, some of the other benefits of legacy letters, I'll sometimes have a client, this actually happens quite often, they'll come in and they'll say, I have a terminal illness and I have limited time and I need to get my financial affairs in order. I have never done an estate plan, or I've done one 20 years ago and haven't updated it in many years. And it's time now to get this taken care of for my family. And that is my favorite person to tell about the legacy letter. You can imagine that when someone is going through a serious illness, there's a lot of stress involved in that. And a legacy letter is a way for them to process what they're feeling and thinking and go beyond that and take this time to write such important words for their loved ones.
So it's cathartic.
It is.
I think that's right. I can imagine that would be very calming for the individual and obviously a great blessing to those who receive it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the peace that the writer gets, I've heard from clients that were going through serious illnesses. We have people come in with pancreatic cancer and other terminal illnesses, and they'll come in and say, I've got 2 months.
Right.
And when they take the time to do this, it is really a gift to themselves as well.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
I have another client that I wanted to share with you. She wrote a legacy letter, future legacy letter. So she had children that had not reached certain milestones. And she wrote a letter.
So marriage,
yes,
birth of a child.
Yes.
Okay.
She wrote a letter for her child to be opened on her wedding day. A letter for her daughter when she had her first child, because she did not get to see her grandchild. So what a beautiful way for the writer to be present at that important milestone.
It sure is. And it reminds me of a gift that a very fine former deceased parishioner of mine did for all of the young ladies in her life. For all of them, when they turned, I think it was 13, she provided them with a string of pearls. And it was, not a huge gift, but not insignificant either, and lovely. And she always, she was of British descent, and I think always saw all of these ladies as young ladies,
Yes.
And even upon her passing, she had numerous of these ready to go in boxes for the people for whom they would be when they became 13. So very much in keeping with this idea of the letter, that it is there when that milestone comes. And so she could be present with them in that moment.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story.
Well, thank you.
And what a gift for the ladies
Yeah.
to have reached that age to get that gift and blessing from her.
Yeah, she had no children of her own, so it was a way, but she had delivered many, many children. She was a former midwife, and so these were all the young ladies that she had delivered, that she had kept in touch with.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so she was like a godmother or, other grandparent for them.
Exactly. Okay, so how do you start writing this legacy letter?
Right. Dearly beloved, right? Dear my beloved wife, son, daughter. I think that's the first step, right?
Right. I like to tell clients, dear blank, I'm writing this letter to you to let you know more about me, our family, and my hopes for your future.
It's beautiful.
That's a way to get started.
It is, yes. And the only, and again, you've named it as hopes for your future. I'm not trying to dictate your future. I'm just saying that my hope for your future is
Yes.
that you will have the joys I've had, that you will exceed in these things.
And I think that if you're looking for some inspiration when you're writing your legacy letter, it helps to surround yourself by pictures, maybe by your family Bible and your favorite scripture, any kind of mementos that help you feel the history, the memories that are important to you, the stories that you want to share.
Your grandmother's fork.
The fork.
Your photos, yeah, all these things. That would certainly bring back many of those memories, wouldn't it? I often tell families as they gather around somebody in their last days or hours to keep telling those stories, and don't be afraid to laugh, and know that the last sense to go is hearing and share this joy. Help them to know that you're going to be okay, that things are going to be okay, and that you cherished this time with them. And they find that, I think, very, very helpful, because sometimes they feel that, in this holy moment, they can't share that very funny story that Granddad did, way back when, and how that so affected their lives. And so that gives them permission to be joyful even in that moment.
Yes.
And, yeah.
That's beautiful. Are there any other final things that you want to share about legacy letters?
Well, I think I'm going to get started on mine.
No pressure.
This has been a great motivation.
Your daughter's going to be looking for
like
that.
everybody, I think that, I'll be here forever and I don't have to worry about it. But I think that getting on that soon, maybe even today, I've gotten the motivation today to begin. So thank you.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I have written legacy letters, but sometimes I get the feeling, oh, that was several years ago. I need to go back and update it. I have more to share.
Yeah.
That's
right.
not bad to
You've
leave
had more
2 letters.
Experiences. Right.
Right. They won't be upset about more than one.
No.
That it is truly the gift that when clients come into my office after losing a loved one, they're carrying that letter with them. And it's the thing that they cherish the most. And I love this topic. I love that you are here to help me share this topic. And I want to share that I'm a member of St. Clements by the Sea Church in San Clemente, and I hope that more people get the opportunity to hear your sermons and be part of our church.
Yeah, it's been a real blessing. This church is the first church built in San Clemente, so it has a long legacy. Its very definition is legacy. And we've been a blessing to the community for all of those years. 94 this September. And
94
of course,
years.
We've been well blessed. So, yeah. So
That's wonderful.
Been wonderful.
I love the sign that hangs outside St. Clement's Church.
Yeah.
What is it?
All are welcome.
All are welcome.
Yeah. There are no outcasts is a sign that we hang in our parish hall, that all are welcome here. And many people wonder, is that true? Am I really welcome? And they find very quickly, as soon as they walk in, that indeed they are. I can tell you that the sensation I received when I first walked into that space, and I've heard this countless times from others who have been there, is I was immediately among family. I knew that the spirit of love and family and joy was there, and that's why people stay.
Yes. So. And that's the way I feel every Sunday when I attend service. And I thank you so much for coming on the podcast so we can help other families feel that joy, especially in tough times.
Absolutely.
When they're facing illness or when they're looking at the possibility of them not physically being present in their loved ones' lives.
That's right. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Ocean Estate Law. We look forward to your joining our future podcasts.